should go ahead and get started with our lightning talks. If Peter is ready.
I'm here.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and share your slides and we can get this show back on the road.
How do I share my slides?
Okay, go to the little arrow, the box with the arrow at the bottom right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Do you see that box? Okay, first of all, is there a little pink button down there with 3 arrows?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, click that, and then the share is in there. It's a box with an arrow.
Okay, got it.
Actually, I think I just shared it for you. Sorry.
Well, I thought that was the point of me sending it out to you guys.
The point of it. You know what? I'll get it for you.
Yeah, I don't even have it on this computer, Eric. I'm sorry.
No, no worries. No worries.
My bad.
Yeah, Peter, they're talking how to get a slideshow.
Okay. Sorry for the hang up, everyone. I think this is actually my fault.
No, it's my fault.
Wait, what?
I see physics don't wear lipstick, and that looks very good.
Wait, how did that happen? I'm uploading yours. I'm sorry, it's not here, Peter. I'm uploading it right now, except it's not going. Sorry, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.
So Peter's going to be talking about the Long-Spur Prairie Fund's microprairie habitats.
Yes, if we could figure out how to get, I'm not able to upload the file, and it's not here. If anybody out there can help me, that would be marvelous. Thanks, Jess. Jess is working on it. Thanks, Peter, for being patient.
Oh my gosh, I'm grateful to be here. This is a blast.
Here we go. Yours is just coming up. And then once it's on the screen, Peter, you should be able to advance the slides as you're.
Got it.
Just about there, just about there.
I see it.
Okay, we all do. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. So lightning session, I have 5 minutes, is that right? So here I go. Before I talk about what I'm actually here to talk about, which is our microprairies, I wanted just to share very, very quickly with you all what the Long-Spur Prairie Fund is all about. Basically, we are a local nonprofit that is dedicated to doing conservation work here in the Red River Valley. The Red River Valley, of course, as you all who are local know, is basically a agricultural nexus. So the challenges involved in doing conservation work in the center of the American farmland heartland is pretty challenging. What I'm going to talk to you all about today is about an initiative that we started last year, and we hope will catch on and be a lot of fun. But before we get to that, very quickly, all of this project is sort of rooted in our interest in getting young people in the community out on the prairie and active with the prairie. If in the prairie it's interesting because it's not a melting glacier and it's not a dead rhino in Africa or a massive swath of deforested rainforest with a little koala bear sitting in front of it. It doesn't have a lot of that kind of dramatic impact, though the ruins of prairie don't have that kind of dramatic impact that we see on the news quite a bit. But I really liked what both Leela and Julia were talking about with regards to the importance of local topographies and local natural action, which is what the Long-Spur Prairie Fund is really all about. We really want to help people recognize the value of our local natural heritage here. And to facilitate that, we've invented a number of different events that help little people get out on the prairie and as well as their families. So we have a bee hunt, which involves, having folks with cameras out on the prairie looking for bees. We document them with a local scientist. We upload them to the bee atlas or whatnot. This is one of my favorite pictures of one of our little bee hunters. We also run something called a tent fest, which is sort of like an early winter camping thing. We go out onto the prairie. We set up some observational material for the stars. There's no light pollution out there on some of our sites. We watch the sunrise and sunset, grill out, hang with the dogs, be one with nature. It's a good time. Again, the idea being that if you're going to appreciate a natural environment in its wholeness, it's nice to find an excuse or to encourage people to go out there and do that in various ways. We're also actively involved in local museums. I really appreciated a lot of Leela's comments about the need to integrate and cross-pollinate between organizational proclivities and disciplines. We sponsor a show every year with the Plains Art Museum called Architecture for the Birds, which is jointly run by us and the NDSU Department of Architecture. A lot of really fun projects of that vein. Published a couple of books out of that, which is fun also. Our highlight event is the slug run, which is a kind of a gateway drug to get kids into nature. We figure that if we can get parents out into a local park to have their kids running around and having a great time, out in the natural world with us, it'll be much easier to say, well, take a 30-minute drive with us out to the prairie and see what the bee hunt is all about. This is a very interdisciplinary kind of event. There's lots of arts, lots of sports, lots of mayhem, lots of fun. And what could be more peaceful than 1,000 to 2,000 toddlers running around in a park? It's absolutely tranquil. And I invite all of you guys to this upcoming event. Now this micro prairie idea. Oh well, of course we also do prairie work itself, and I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about the Minnesota Prairie Plan. We're involved in this. It's a pretty outrageous undertaking. It seeks to create a corridor of restored and rehabilitated prairie that runs from Canada to the Iowa border. We have pieces in the Glacial Ridge section, in the Minoan section, and Agassiz Beach Ridges, also the Lake Christina Alexander Moraine. We're involved on technical teams for all of those. It really is quite interesting. It's a big project, however, and that's the opposite of what I really want to talk to you all about. And these are just some pictures of some of our seeding maps and whatnot, and kind of some of the work that we do. The real purpose of today's talk, and I'm actually already out of time, is to talk about not big prairies, but micro prairies. Now, what's a micro prairie? Basically, a micro prairie is a small prairie land or a small parcel of land that's been planted with local grass and forbs. We are running this in consultation and in cooperation with the Xerxes Society. Oh, great. Oh, thanks. Okay, I'll slow down then. We're also involved with local museums. Both the Rourke and the Plains Art Museum are involved in this project. The Rourke Art Museum and the Plains both have micro prairies on their sites presently. The first one of these that we actually installed was at the Rourke, and if you're here in Moorhead, this is the southeastern corner of the Rourke Art Museum. Before we installed this, basically it's just, it's grass, it's a lawn. And I'm sure most of you know this, but there is more lawn being cultivated in the United States than there is corn, soybeans, and wheat combined. I know that seems just incredible, but it is accurate. We love our lawns. They're fundamentally worthless, however, when it comes to the ecology. And they are a net negative. They are sponges for expensive fertilizers and pesticides, and they're really only good for running on, which is fine, but the problem is that, the vast majority of our lawns are not being used for play and for kids. They're being used as sort of decorative ornaments for these massive homes that we also may not need. So the idea is to turn these ecologically barren sites into something a little bit more exciting, and installing these micro prairies in high impact areas and just people's residential properties. Now, this particular project was co-sponsored with the Becker County Soil and Water Conservation District. We got a small grant from them. It was not expensive to put in. The grand total for all of these, and these are plugs, not seeds. You can do seeds much more cheaply. The grand total for all of this was about $2,000. And I know that seems like a lot at first glance, but when I get to my final slide, I'll show you how we can do it for much cheaper. There's my friend Phil watering some of it there on Main Street. This is a picture of my own front yard, and just to show you some of the stages of the planting. It really just amounts to basically preparing the seed bed, planting the seed, and then rolling out a protective anti-erosion mat over it. All of this was planted with seed, not plugs like we saw before. And there is my kitchen table, and that is a picture that I took with a bunch of deadheaded prairie plants from some of our other sites, just picking and cleaning the seeds off them. Each one of these jars holds enough seed to seed roughly half the size of a football field. I completely went overboard with my own project, and that was just kind of my own fault. I had a tendency to get a little bit overly excited. Each one of those little black rectangles inside this head is a seed. It is a carrier of vast amounts of genetic information that creates the entire flower, of course. This is another one of our microprairies that was put into seed by on one of our third microprairie sites. This was done by Dwight Mickelson. All of this was put in by seed. The total cost for him installing this microprairie was $0.00. We harvested the seed from other sites. We installed it, and we did it for free. We can continue to do it for free. And the insane sort of exponential impact of this kind of project is that once you get a couple microprairies going, you have enough seed to make more microprairies. I mean, almost infinite seed. Each one of those flowers contains each one of the plants contains almost enough to seed an entire microprairie on its own. And you have a nice diversity of planting like we see here. The potential impacts are great. These are sites to encourage community science, which I love. We get the I'm going to answer that question in a second. We have opened this up to biologists at North Dakota State University, Minnesota State University, and Concordia for research projects. They're gorgeous to look at. You have bees and birds crawling all over these places. My friend Dwight has a bird feeder. None of the birds went to it. They all landed in the prairie. Go figure. They want fresh food. Shocking, I know. But we see this as a really fun opportunity to get people excited and involved in prairie work on their own terms. It's a way to actually take a concrete step in transforming our communities and our own environments. I think the potential is really endless. And again, once you get a couple of these put in, the sky is really the limit because the cost can be nothing. And if you have interested landowners who want to change their yards from a green desert into something that's thriving and beautiful and healthy, it is a step away. It's real. It's immediately impactful, and it really doesn't take that much time. So thank you all for having me. Thanks for your attention. My name is Peter Schultz again, and it's just been an honor to listen to these talks and to be involved. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Peter. So did you have a chance? My microphone is echoing. Did you have a quick answer regarding the city zoning?
Right. Well, your front yards are not controlled really by zoning in the same way that the boulevard is. And as long as your garden is tidy, the city, at least here in Moorhead, the city won't and really can't say anything about it as long as it's tidy. There's a kind of a nuisance yard clause, which is sort of nebulously defined. And that's why when we encourage the installation of these things, there is a little bit of landscaping to go into it to make it clear that it's a garden. But so far we haven't had any trouble. In fact, the mayor of the city of Moorhead has kind of kicked this up the food chain to some of her people. There's been a new hire here in the city who's been tasked with sort of the environmental stewardship of the land inside the city limits. So we're really interested to be working with her to figure out how we can make this a little bit more common. I think our end goal really, however, is just to get rid of as many pointless yards as we can. I mean, everybody needs room to play and have a great, to be outside and to be physical and to be active and whatnot. At the same time, there is definitely room for nature inside the city limits. And I think the benefits of these sites, it's actually been quite a bit of work done on these in other communities. It's not my idea by any means, but I think that once the ball gets rolling on this, these can be really beneficial on virtually every level to a small town or an urban metropolis. So again, the zoning, sorry, I got kind of off topic with that, but the zoning so far is not a problem. As long as it's off the boulevard, you're pretty much okay as long as it is what you're doing is doing your gardening, which of course you're entitled to. My neighbors, when I started plowing up my front yard, looked at me a little bit funny, but after the first season, they were quite happy, because we gave them seeds, and when it was a vegetable garden, we gave them food. So basically, bribery was sort of the modus operandi there. But again, I think it's going to be a fun project, and we've got a lot of great sponsors on board. And if you live in the Fargo-Moorhead area, you're going to be seeing a lot of these pop up in the next 5 or 6 years. So I hope you'll enjoy them.
Great. Thank you so much, Peter. I'm going to ask you to continue answering questions in chat, and then I'm going to have Zena. Sorry, I'm hearing it echo again. Zena, Ben, and Megan, go ahead and do their lightning talk.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
Hello?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. This is Zainab Yusuf. Over here is Megan Carroll. The two of us are the co-chairs of the Digital Exhibit Working Committee at our library. And we're going to be doing a demonstration for you of the Magic Box. I would advise you switch from speaker mode to group mode. If you look at the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll sort of see 4 boxes, and switch that so that our video is kind of maximized for you. Cool, I'm gonna assume you all did that. Okay, so here in front of me is the Magic Box. It is a digital display tool that lets you have kind of physical exhibits, but also the interactivity you would have with a digital display. You'll see that inside we have actual physical stuff, specifically in this case, a typewriter that is similar to what Elwood Robinson would have used. This display is focused on the history of North Dakota, his sort of seminal work. Cutting out a bit, okay. All right, I am hoping this fixes the noise issues. Great, okay. So inside the box, we have physical materials. Here right now, it is a typewriter as well as some other works that Elwood Robinson has written. In terms of the actual digital stuff, Megan has opened up a video, so you can have those on the Magic Box. We're keeping it mute for now, but it serves as an introduction to the exhibit. I guess I'll let it play for maybe 2 more seconds and then take us back to our menu screen. You can put a number of materials on these exhibits. In this case, we have images available. People can flip through it, zoom in like Megan's doing right now, and it's just a good way to sort of give related image type material to whatever it is that you are exhibiting. In this particular scenario, we have images from the book that we're focusing on, as well as related memorabilia from Elwood Robinson's life. Audio is still off and on. Oh, well, I will attempt to keep my head as still as possible and see with this. So that's kind of how it looks like with ImageWorks. We also have a copy of the book available as well as credits. We're probably not going to go through the book right now just because it doesn't display that well on a video screen, but the credits are pretty clear, so Megan will play those for you. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. Do you have any questions about it? We can demonstrate since we're playing live here.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I think we're, do you have anybody have any quick questions? Otherwise, I think we decided to have Holly go next because she has something she has to get to.
We aren't currently, although it does suck. Okay, never mind. I'm correct. It does collect metrics.
Laura, we should have Katie Muller, our next presentation.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. That was really cool.
So I guess next up we have Katie Muller, who is the one that had those cool slides that we saw a quick preview of earlier, which is Physicists Don't Wear Lipstick. And she is a junior at UND who is double majoring in communication and physics. And she is active in the Cooley Cleanway project and looking to have a career in science communication, and also is interested in talking about women in STEM.
Okay, can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can just get started. We're good to go?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. So, yep, like they said, I'm Katie, and I'm here to kind of talk to you guys about two different things, the Cooley that runs through UND's campus, as well as promoting women in STEM. So we'll get started. So just a little bit about me. I'm a woman, and I love being a woman, and I love encouraging other women. I'm, like they said, a physics major and a communications major, as well as a Division I athlete here at UND. So a lot of my time is also spent playing soccer. I'm a huge Pinterest junkie. I'm a makeup enthusiast. I love doing it every day. I'm also Oregonian native. I live about 20 minutes south of Portland, and I grew up on a rural farm and then moved into the city later when I grew up. So kind of got a weird, diverse background of a lot of different things. So I'm kind of a weird mix of things. So let's start with my activism and science on campus. So currently right now I am working, one of the research projects I'm working on is what we've called the Cooley Cleanway, and it's a cross-disciplinary research project where we're involving the UND math department, the UND chemistry department, as well as the environmental science and communication department. And what our goal is to research more about the Cooley and its health.
Did we lose Katie?
I think we lost Katie. Shoot. Maybe she can jump back in real quick. Give her a minute.
I think it's reconnecting.
Katie, are you back with us?
Hello? I'm back.
Good.
Okay.
Katie,
That's so
back.
funny.
Hooray.
What happened when I'm presenting, of course. Okay. Back to what I was doing. Okay, so anyway, cross-disciplinary research project that we're doing, and we're kind of just seeing what's in the water, seeing what is the Grand Forks area doing to pollute it. For those of you who don't know, the Cooley actually starts behind Columbia Mall, which is about a mile away from campus. So it's been kind of interesting learning for me what's there and what's not. And so basically, that's kind of what my project is right now. And my role is to help translate what the scientists are doing in the community, as well as come up with tactics to enact change within the members that are interacting with us. So next slide. Why is this important? Why are we working with this? And it's a big education piece. It's a big education piece for the college students, huge education piece for the community as well. I know coming from Oregon, we're very environmentally conscious. Coming here, it's not as big of a thing. So that's great. It's an outreach to the community as well as other members of UND who, oh, wow, like I want to get involved. How can I help? And so it's a good outreach opportunity as well as public interest. Can we interest the Grand Forks community to better take care of what they're doing. So like they talked about lawns, fertilizer is a big water pollutant and things like that. Just making them aware of their everyday habits and how they have an impact on a waterway like this that runs through our campus. And it can be an inspiration. Maybe someone sees this project and it's like, wow, I want to get into science, or like, wow, I really want to really find out more about this, or how can I help fund things? And, you know, maybe I can get my public officials to listen to this. And so it's just a really good chance to help raise environmental awareness and also waterway health. To transition to my second thing that I'm talking about, which is pushing for women in STEM. And I am so very passionate about this. You can ask any of my teammates. I blab about it all the time because I think it's really important. And reasons why it's really important is because it helps to make more diverse work groups. Right now, as a physics major, I think there's maybe 3 upper division women out of, I think, 20 upper division majors right now. And so it's mostly men. And so it's mostly men conversations or just different things. But it would create a better diverse work group if we can increase women in STEM. There's also different problem solving strategies. Women process information differently, and that's just innate nature, and men process in their way too. And so having both sides would really help increase just, oh, well, if men only look at it like this, but then women throw this other thing in, maybe we can solve problems, or vice versa. It just helps different problem solving strategies. Also, it's more inclusive. I mean, if we get more women in there, people like me wouldn't be as afraid to join women in STEM. I mean, me going in there is a big barrier. It was, oh, I don't belong. There's not many people here. Who am I going to be friends with? So the more women we can get, the more inclusive it will feel. As well as more perspectives. I mean, we've seen this in lawmaking. When old white men are making the rules, women tend to be underrepresented. So if we can get more women in STEM, there will just be other perspectives that maybe a mother would have that a father wouldn't, and other things like that. And then the big question is, why not? You know, typically women were just not encouraged or not allowed, and it starts way from back in history why women aren't in STEM. But now we're at a point where we're working for women's equality, so why not push for women in STEM? That's my big, like, why not? Like, why do I feel like I can't be a woman in STEM? And the big reason why is the problems we face as women in STEM. There's a lot of judgment on intelligence. You don't see a lot of women, and so when a woman's in a STEM degree and they say something, it's kind of like, oh, like, I don't know if she really knows what she's talking about, or maybe we should ask a dude, he'd probably know. That actually happens a lot, and that's the unconscious bias in the classroom and community that we have. I've had many of times that because I said something, it's not as viable as if the male counterpart next to me said it, and that's just absolutely ridiculous in this day and age. But it's a challenge we face. So women who aren't as confident aren't going to want to go to a STEM major where they're just going to be shot down all the time. Also judgments on appearance, clothes, makeup, priorities, just all those different things. Like if I come to class wearing a scandalous outfit, that's not scandalous at all. I'm getting judged on what I wore versus I'm not judging the guy who wears sneakers with holes in it. It just comes there, and also like, oh, your makeup, like, oh, what are you dressing up for? It's like, I want to present myself how I want to present myself, and I should not be judged on that. I should just be able to come to a community of people and interact with them. A big thing is also the imposter syndrome, which is it's the idea that I don't belong here, and like, oh, they're gonna catch me, like I'm faking it, like what am I doing here? And that's a really hard thing as a woman in physics, is that we have a lot of that, is that our male counterparts don't necessarily respect us, or we don't get as good grades, or we get better grades and then we get shot down for it. And it's just that I don't belong here, and it's just trying to empower women to feel like they do belong here. Another big piece is lack of community of similar interests. Men don't want to talk about makeup. Men don't want to talk about shopping sprees, and that's completely fine. But when women don't have other women to talk to about it, that's when we run into problems, is that if we can make a bigger community of women in STEM, and then it will just continue, it'll be a snowball effect of just people find, oh, I can be here because there's people like me. And that's how I felt, is that there was no one like me in STEM. And so I'm really trying to pioneer student athlete, makeup, clothes, physical appearance priorities in STEM. So that's where I'm really passionate, is making it so other people like me feel that they belong. So how do you encourage young women to pursue STEM? I mean, that's the big thing. And, the librarians really are going to be the big help here. It's helping out younger women to feel encouraged. And you can do that by complimenting their intelligence as well as their looks. Telling a girl she's smart goes a very long way, because a lot of times we're just told that we're pretty, or we're nice, or we're kind. Tell us we are smart. that will really go a long way. Build their confidence at a young age. So you find a girl that loves science or loves building or tinkering with stuff, like tell her, wow, that's great. What else can you do? Tell me about what you're doing. Introduce them to science with toys and other things. Don't just give them Barbies. Give them Lincoln Logs. Have them build a house for their Barbies. Have them build barns for their toy horses. Just start to encourage them with science kits and experimenting. Show them they have a career. Studies have shown that if you show a woman she has a career in a field, she's much more likely to pick that field. And so showing women that they have a spot in the STEM community with a career really helps them want to identify with that. As well as give them a role model. Show them someone. This is this girl. She's doing this. She's done this. It's great. Give them someone to look forward to, because for me, when I look out, I don't have that many women scientists that I can identify with. It's like, wow, she's doing really cool science, but like, what's her Pinterest board like? Those are the common interests that I'm trying to break. Those stereotypes that I just am a scientist. It's like, no, I am a girl. I am this. I am that. My PowerPoint went away. I don't know why. And basically, stop stereotyping young girls. Stop telling them that because they're pretty, they should go into a business degree, or they're good at talking, so go into sales or marketing. Just encourage them in what they're good at. And then identify strong science students in middle school. And follow up in high schools. A lot of times girls lose their interest as they get older because they're just not encouraged in it, or they don't like it, or their friends aren't there. So if you find a girl that's good at science, like keep telling her she's good, keep helping her through her process. And finally, to conclude, just overall, show women that they have space in the STEM community, because right now I'm kind of playing the Jackie Robinson role, is how I feel, is that I am really trying to be an activist towards women in STEM. I mean, there are women in STEM, but there's not enough pursuing the younger generations. There's not enough showing them that they have an identity in it. I know that there's lots of organizations coming up here and there, but their focus is getting them into STEM, but it's also finding the community in STEM. A big thing is men will make mistakes with how they treat you and what they say to you, but know that you're greater than what they think. And sometimes that they're wrong. I know a lot of times in the department, and throughout my conferences I've been to for women in physics, a lot of times men say things that they don't understand is not appropriate. And girls who get discouraged, that's where we're going to lose them, versus the girls who are confident won't care. So just encouraging girls know, like, they're not right. They're not right about you. Like, you are great and stuff is going to really help keep them prevalent in STEM. And if we make a conversation about women in STEM prevalent and get the men on board, we can make major strides in the next year of college enrollment. That's a big thing, is if we get men on board, that's how we're going to make a really big impact. We just need them to help us out, because they have the stature, they have the status, they have the history behind them, but we don't. So we need their help. And thinking that we can do it on our own, we would have done it already. And so, getting the men on board, encouraging women, and just putting a focus on it is really great. And that's my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I can definitely leave my email and stuff. But overall, just if you see a girl in STEM, please encourage her, and please tell her that there's a community, even if she doesn't feel like she fits in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so if you could put your email in the chat, we'll go ahead and send you any questions we have. And next up, we have Sarah and Holly, who need to leave in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to have them go ahead and tell us about library scholarly communication initiatives at the University of North Dakota.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Holly and I are subject librarians here to tell you about our scholarly communication initiatives that we're doing at UND. Okay, so let me give you a little background on how these initiatives started. In 2015, Stephanie Walker became Dean of Libraries and Information Resources here at UND, and she's really been the driving force behind the development of more scholarly communication initiatives and roles at our library. I began in June 2017 as the Social Sciences and Scholarly Communication Librarian responsible for the development and facilitation of library services in 4 social sciences departments and at scholarly communication activities across campus. So the main challenge has been the breadth of my role, and I've needed to rely heavily on collaborations with other subject librarians. There's been a push on campus from the president, provost, and the research office to heighten research productivity on campus, and we're doing what we can to provide services in alignment with this goal, specifically regarding the creation of journal quality lists for publishing for every department on campus. And they have been tasked to complete this by the end of this spring semester. One of my biggest challenges has been understanding and addressing faculty resistance to demonstrating their research impact and the lack of awareness on methods on how to do so. So to counter this, I've partnered with subject librarians and the library dean to disseminate information on what scholarly communication means and what relevant tools are available, and to promote and deliver workshops, attend faculty meetings, and meet with faculty one-on-one. We have been partnering with a faculty fellow in the research office who is tasked with promoting research productivity on campus. One great step forward that came out of this collaboration was our ability to give input into fields used in the Digital Measures Activity Insight tool for tracking researcher output, to include an indication of whether or not the author would give the library permission to deposit the same work into our new institutional repository, the UND Scholarly Commons. We've also developed a suite of LibGuides that we call research guides on scholarly communication topics, and created an initiatives promotional video to provide an overview on how the guides might be useful to faculty. This was a group effort and involved several librarians, student workers, and other campus staff. I was invited to do a workshop for education faculty and grad students on journal quality metrics and tools that was recorded and posted online, and I received positive faculty feedback for that session. I organized a Cabell's whitelist and blacklist trial as a journal quality tool, but received no response from faculty on the usefulness of this resource. It was promoted widely by subject librarians, but it was a busy time for faculty, and based on my experience, lack of interest may have also played a role. Librarians felt that the resource really needs some fine-tuning for it to be more useful. The library dean, digital initiatives librarian, and I attended several campus-wide faculty P&T sessions with a 2-page handout. This seems to be one of our most impactful strategies yet. The provost office asked for the handout to post on their P&T website, and it was obvious that most faculty were unaware of but excited about the potential of the resources we were promoting. Other campus libraries also requested the handout for their faculty. So the first page includes 3 sections. Where is your research, on co-locating research for citation counts, H indices, and metrics for impact. Then what's in a name, on creating an ORCID ID to identify the researcher across platforms, and journal and publisher quality, on metric and altmetric tools for assessing publishers. The handout contains targeted links to the scholarly communication research guides. This was strategic. Instead of linking directly to ORCID, I linked to the page on the research guide describing and linking to ORCID. So once they arrive on the suite, there's a variety of further topics for them to discover. The second page of the handout includes information around what can be archived on the institutional repository. A common question includes, what is a preprint or postprint? I don't want my Word document to be online. We usually answer that the manuscripts will be converted to PDFs before they're placed on the Commons. They also often ask, what if I didn't publish it while at UND? We tell them that this actually doesn't matter. If copyright allows for self-archiving, they can still legally deposit the work in the Commons, regardless of what institution they were at when completing the work. We also have a web version that is linked here if you want to look at it later. So the Books by UND Authors Research Guide was my first mini project developed to highlight the output of UND authors that we had copies of in the library. I then continued by spearheading the suite of scholarly communication guides. The data management and authors' rights guides created by Zainab Yusuf, Digital Initiatives Librarian, include information on developing data management plans, copyright, adding author addendums when publishing, and archiving on the Scholarly Commons. The open access and OER guides were developed by Holly Gabriel and our education librarian, Megan Keeley Carroll Dennis, and based on their previous work. I created the remaining 4 guides. The Publishing Strategies P&T guide contains information on how librarians and library resources can assist faculty in developing publishing strategies and gather information for their P&T dossier. The 2 Research Impact Guides highlight tools for discovering traditional metrics like Journal Impact Factor and Researcher H Index, and altmetrics like the number of downloads or social media attention scores. The Researcher IDs Guide presents platforms for researcher identities, profiles, and communities like ResearchGate, Google Scholar, and ORCID ID. This is the Suite homepage. I found this project to be quite fun and engaging. It involved a lot of decision making and collaboration. It took about 3 months of very focused work to complete. The promotional video took 7 weeks to finish, and then it was uploaded to our new Chester Fritz Library Vimeo channel and embedded in the center of this menu. We invited librarian and selected faculty feedback throughout, followed by a presentation on the guides to librarians across UND libraries. It was also communicated broadly in person and through email to faculty and departments. I continually have librarians tell me that a certain guide or a page on the guide was helpful for them when working with a faculty member. So overall, I think the project was a success. However, the nature of scholarly communication in our current dynamic publishing environment means I'll need to continually update it, and I invite feedback from all of you as well. And thank you. That's all for me. Holly Gabriel, our Business and Government Documents Librarian, will now talk to you about open educational research initiatives.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So in 2015, a campus working group on OERs was created and chaired by our library dean. And from 2015 to 2018, the North Dakota University System invested $200,000 for this initiative across the state, which included all 11 colleges across North Dakota. Also, the UND student government and the provost office invested $100,000 specifically for UND instructions. So the funding went to a request for grant proposals, which the working group here at UND requested grant proposals from instructors. So we targeted high enrollment classes, and classes with expensive textbooks got priorities for the funding. And if instructors applied for these grants, they could receive $3,000 per course to adopt their course with an open textbook or open materials, as well as to adjust their lecture plans for that course. About 30 classes or labs are using an OER as a direct result of these grant funds. A wide variety of classes are implementing OERs, for example, Introduction to Sociology, Intro to Psych, English, Business, Engineering, Nursing, all across the board. And OER representation is in almost every college on our campus. So what was the librarian's role? We planned and hosted, the working group planned and hosted several summits on campus. We had one statewide summit and others here on our campus with speakers from Merlot, the Minnesota Open Textbook Initiatives, and Spark. And Sarah and I are both on that OER working group. Faculty, librarians and instructional designers from campus planned and host small workshops with faculty to work one-on-one with the instructors who received those $3,000 grant funding opportunities. And then lastly, OERs that are developed by UND instructors are deposited in our institutional repository called the UND Scholarly Commons. We've gotten great publicity for the library for saving students money. The student government and the provost are very supportive. And lastly, the OER working group has funds for more grants, so we'll be offering, opening the proposals another round very soon. And lastly, in the first 3 years of OERs at UND, we have invested approximately $85,000, and we've saved students roughly estimated maximum of $3.7 million for an ROI of $43.53 for every $1 invested. And I'll just say, the reason it says maximum of 3.7 million is that we looked at those 30 classes or labs that we have worked with instructors on those, and we looked at what was the maximum enrollment of those 30 courses and what was the cost of a new textbook that the instructor was using previously for that course. So at this point, we have our contact information there, and at the end of this period, we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Yep, we're going to do questions after the next couple of speakers have gone. So next up, we have takeaways from an inaugural usability study and future plans from Christine, Jessica, and Margaret from University of Toledo in Toledo, Ohio. So go ahead and take it away.
Hello, I'm Christine Rigda, and let's see, there we go. Can everyone see that? Just a little programming note here that Jessica Morales couldn't join us today, so it'll just be me and Margaret Hoagland. And we wanted to talk to you about a usability study that we conducted at the University of Toledo. We're all the way in Ohio. And we're a medium-sized, rather large, actually, university. And we had never conducted a usability study before. And we decided to do this with our discovery layer. So hopefully from this, you'll be able to get some quick tips on, maybe you're thinking about doing one yourself. And you'll be able to take away some things here that'll help you plan and help you set it up. Okay, so the first thing you really need to do is set some objectives. And for us, our main objective going in was that, we launched our EDS in, it was in the fall of 2016. And we just kind of let it loose for the students to use. And we ran into some problems. We weren't sure if things were set up properly. And one area that really we questioned was local items versus consortial items. We display our local catalog, and we're also a part of OhioLink, which is our consortium. And we really weren't sure that it was clear that people would be able to go back and forth and know what they're looking at. So that was our main objective going in. Can people find things locally and consortially? We also just wanted to get a general understanding of user behavior because, as I said, we never did a usability study before, and we really didn't know. I mean, we instruct our users to use the catalogs and things, but can they really use it? Are they really finding what they need? And a third objective here was to identify ways to improve the actual interface, if there were any. I mean, maybe, everything was going to come out okay, but we really wanted to look for ways to improve and not just base it on things that we thought as librarians should be improved, but we actually wanted to base it on data. Okay, so form some objectives, and we had a few challenges to overcome here. Since we were starting from scratch, we had to decide what to test, how to design a usability test. We really consulted the literature a lot on this because we were really kind of blind. We had a vague idea of it, but the literature really helped us out. And we also had to figure out a way how to gather the data. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that a little bit later. So usability tests, they usually consist of a pretest of demographic data. They have a second portion of task questions where you actually let your users loose and let them search and find something. Like you can instruct them to find a book, on this topic, or find an article, find a full text article, find an ebook, things like that. So that was what we did. We just wanted to make it very general, but also include some of those points like finding consortial items and things like that in our test. We decided to recruit students. We wanted to keep the number fairly small at 20 to 30 students. That seems to be the number that people shoot for in the literature. And we did some great flyers. We advertised on social media, did all that stuff, and we didn't get anyone interested in our study. So we found that the most effective way to get students was to actually just ask them, just approach them and ask them to do it. All right, do you want to do it right now? And they were very, very cooperative. They really were. They were very happy to do it. And we also offered an incentive, which didn't hurt. It was a $10 gift card just for local eateries, Starbucks, the bookstore, things like that. So that really helped, and we were able to complete the tests in a couple of days. And we had a couple of workstations set up for them to do it. And then we gathered all this data, and then we had to interpret it. But I want to talk a little bit more about how we actually gathered the data. We used a recording software called Moray, and this was recommended in some of the articles that we read. It's really a great tool. It meant that we didn't have to just stand over someone and observe and take notes. We could leave them alone, just click it on, and it records keystrokes and all their mouse movements. It's all very, very clear where they're clicking and what they're doing. And there's an audio component available if you do that think aloud thing where you want to hear their strategy. You can tell them to verbalize that. We didn't do that for this study though. There's no limit to the recording length, so that was good, especially in those times when we forgot to turn it off, or students finished and started doing his homework. So that was kind of funny. But there was another component in it that could be useful. We didn't use it at the time because we didn't have a whole lot of time, but there's a way to actually compare data. You can take your task questions and you should be able to kind of compare them, in length, did this one take longer than that one, and do some nifty graphs and charts. And we haven't really begun to play with that, but that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at. Key benefit of it is that we were able to record, and then we could watch at our leisure, or whenever we wanted to, and we tallied up on a spreadsheet what people were searching, where they were clicking, and that was really very efficient for us. Limitations, it could be cost. It's a rather pricey software. We purchased one license, and that one license lets one workstation actually view the recordings, although you can install it on as many devices as you want. So you could have 5 students, 10 students doing this all at the same time on different computers if you wanted to. So that was okay. You can also use something, this is specifically for usability testing, but you could also use something like Camtasia if you want. That doesn't have as many capabilities, but if you're limited by cost, that's an option as well. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about data analysis. And really going in here, what we looked at were 4 different areas. We looked at the observed behavior. What were they doing on the screen? Were they hesitating on certain words? Were they scrolling down? Were they looking at the next page? What were they doing? We also looked at their search strategies, and most people do the keyword search. And we also looked at limiter use. And one thing we found though with limiter use, or filters, whatever you want to call that, one thing about that though is that they didn't use limiters if we didn't tell them to in the questions. So they knew how to do it. If we asked them, find a full text article and or a peer-reviewed article, they would do it, but they wouldn't do it on their own. So take that for what it is. And then the last thing we did, we looked at success rates. Were they successful? Were they able to find what we were telling them to look for? So right now I want to just talk about, we had very good success with, we had 5 questions, and the only question that caused people problems, the most problems, was question 1, and that was where we asked them to find a print book by Stephen King in our local collection. And we thought that finding a print book might cause some problems because we were having problems as librarians, but we weren't sure. Weren't sure if it was just a quirk of EDS or if it was a real thing that we needed to fix. So we did, because some people it would take them several minutes to find a book, or they would just give up. So we did talk with EBSCO, and they made some suggestions. They looked at our mapping table for EDS, and they found that ebooks were also being mapped with print books. So that was really influencing the results people were seeing. And we also, at their suggestion, added a custom limiter just for print books. And once we removed ebooks from that, it worked a lot better. We also found a couple things that we needed to adjust. We renamed our catalog options. We had something called catalog only, and people were really confused. They didn't know what that meant. So we changed that to UT catalog only for University of Toledo. And we, just sometimes a simple thing like that can make a huge difference. We also had a couple default, we had a default limiter that wasn't really doing anything that we didn't realize was there, and we think that might have been just confusing for people. And once we found that it wasn't really doing anything anyway, we just removed it. That was a quick fix there. So that we were able to do. So implementing this was very easy. As I said, we talked with EBSCO. We also presented our findings to the library faculty and staff and got their input. And really, we were able to it was really good to actually get some data and base our decisions on that data. It wasn't just something that we thought would be a good idea, but it was actually something that actually did change. And once we made those changes, we were able to find books very easily. Okay, now I'm going to turn things over to Margaret Hoagland, who's going to talk about future plans.
Thank you. As Chris mentioned, this was our first time doing it, so we learned a lot. One of the things we discovered is that when you're trying to study user behavior from a primarily undergraduate campus and then a primarily graduate campus, things get a little different. And so we learned a lot. And what we're thinking of doing for this next group is I will actually be doing it in spring of 2019. I've got some other things on the agenda, so I can't get to it sooner. But what we're trying to do is figure out how our users are using the library. So, as Laura mentioned, you're thinking of doing a redesign of your website. This may give you some ideas. So this is the Mulford Library website. It has lots of different links. In fact, there are about 40 of them. This is the Carlson Library website. Now, if you take a quick look at it, and then I'm going to jump back to the previous one, there really is not much of a difference between the two of them. And that is primarily why we're going to do a study, to see just exactly what our users are thinking. I started here nearly 2 years ago, and I get this question all the time. My blank library was so much better than the UT library. We had access to everything. This is usually because they're searching the discovery layer, or they are using the library catalog and they don't know where to look, or for any number of reasons, we get this with new faculty, new students, so on and so forth. The second one is, I I'm trying to order a book, and when I typed it in the box, I got lots of results, but what I want did not appear. Again, it's usually somebody using the discovery layer or typing in the ever famous magnifying glass on the search box and not finding what they want. This one, however, this last question is what I hear more than anything else. Wait, I don't see PubMed anywhere. I'm going back to accessing PubMed the normal way, meaning I'm going to go to Google, I'm going to type in PubMed, it's not going to be connected to the full text journal articles, and then we're going to be back to question number 1 where they say they don't have access to anything. So what are we going to do? So the objectives are in 2019 to get a good sample size of students, faculty, and staff from the health science campus. We have colleges of pharmacy, nursing, and medicine. To reel the participants in, we will be giving them, funded by me, 2 $50 gift cards. Anybody who participates gets the chance, and they can decide if they want it to be from Amazon, a bookstore, or to get some groceries. It's going to be a lot of work. I'm excited by what I've learned by participating with both Chris and Jessica on this current usability study, and we welcome any questions that you have for us.
So we'll do the questions after the next couple of presenters. So next up we have Carlene Clark, and she's going to be talking about student workers and the importance of having learning outcomes for student employees. Go ahead, Carlene.
Okay, just checking the microphone. I always have trouble getting it to work.
Yep, it's working. We hear you.
Okay, good. So the importance of learning outcomes, if you listened to me at all last year, talk about customer service and why that's important, this is all part of that whole process and why that's related. So the easiest explanation for what learning outcomes are is what are they going to put on their resume as a mastered skill. It's been noted with the millennial generation, those that I'm working with, that they excel in all of their technical skills, but they're lacking in any of their soft skills such as listening, communication, diplomacy, relationship building. And while all of those are very important, we're still part of their college education, and we have to do more than just provide tasks for them to do while they're with us. And this is also the first job that many of them are having. So by setting those learning outcomes, and we do it simple and clearly, we give them something to work towards. This can be as simple as saying something like, students will learn to use communication skills effectively to answer the phones professionally and politely. Students will learn accountability by being on time, maintaining their timesheet, and notifying supervisors when they need to be gone. They'll learn approachability by proper dress, practicing good hygiene, and using body language, such as smiles, meeting eyes, that kind of thing, that invites interaction with customers. And students will demonstrate customer service skills with an attitude of yes, rather than no, it's policy, or I can't. For us, we're teaching them by role play examples of difficult situations and giving them words to say. So if they come to the desk and they're telling us how frustrated they are and that you don't understand how important this is, for the students to say, I understand, it's frustrating. Here's what I can do for you. So by having that one statement, they're finding a way to be approachable and be accountable for the situation and letting the person understand that they are on their same side with it. So how do we get to the point of developing these skills? How do you choose them? You want to start with what you already know. That would be your credo, your values, and your vision statements. Looking at what are the values of your department. This is something that is for the entire university, the entire library, and comes down into your department as something that's maybe a little bit different depending on what your tasks are. Biggest thing with this is if it's important for the staff, it should likewise be important for your students. And second, what do you see as the vision of the future? Do you want automatons or do you want skilled workers that feel fulfilled? Do you want high turnover rates or workers who are learning skills that are going to help them beyond college? Having the value and vision clear and articulating to those employees makes the work important for them. especially in this really adaptive culture of change that we're living in. It can be very distressing for the people and especially for students, and we need to be very clear in what's mattering in our jobs, which takes us right back to the credo. The credo is the mission of the university, the mission of the department, and it's our promise. The Chesterfield's Library looked at UND, which stated that the university encourages students to make informed choices, to communicate effectively, be intellectually curious and creative, commit themselves to lifelong learning in the service of others, and to share responsibility both for their own communities and for the world. The university promotes cultural diversity among its students, staff, and faculty. So for us especially, we focus on that intellectually curious and creative part, encouraging the students to do things that are going to make the library a better place and to communicate with us about things that they can do. So even with the implementation of a full-time night supervisor, we have, at least for now, kept the training of the new students to the daytime hours during the work week. The library is busiest during those hours, exposing them to most of the situations they'll encounter. Oops, 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 jumped. So what it means is that they're observed by the staff or a senior level student. And that allows these senior level students to practice their leadership learning outcomes, and it helps them reinforce all of that. So once you have this clear vision and direction for what you want to do, start with the job expectations. For us, we put those on our open positions for the student jobs. We do it for the staff positions, so why not do it for our students? It helps them get a very clear sense of what the job is going to entail. And for my department, at least, it's cut down on the number of students that had the expectation that work study means come to work to study. They know they're not just a warm body, that they're a valued employee for what they're doing. And we make sure this is very clear right from the beginning. So to make that happen, we make sure that we post clear duties on the job description and very clear learning outcomes. So our job description says that we work in a busy customer service centered environment. First semester's daytime only, options are available in the future, and if you have no qualifications, we're happy to teach as long as you're willing to learn. The other part of that is the learning outcomes. We have those described as qualifications and requirements. And those are motivation, accountability, customer service, detail, and interpersonal skills both in teams and independently. So they've gotten the invitation to come to an interview. Treat them as adults doing their first real job interview. This is not the time to bring them in and just say, you're going to do fine. You're a warm body. Oh, I knew your parents. This is not how you want to go about doing this. You want to make sure that you're giving them the same respect that you would to another adult going to a job interview. So for us, we include different types of questions that include things like their previous job experience and includes what they've done as high school events in case they have not done any. And we follow that up by asking what they liked best and why. The answer to that is going to tell me if they're a leader, a follower, or if they're the kind that likes to challenge themselves, or if they prefer to take it easy. If they were happy sitting on the bench in a sporting event, that's fine. I know that there's somebody that's going to be participatory. They're just not going to be the one to take the lead on the projects that come up. Related to that, we ask what they consider to be a crisis. Seems like kind of a deep question for a college student, and it is rather subjective. But the answers to this particular question reveal a lot about their personalities. There are no right or wrong answers, but it makes them start thinking about what they already excel at, and it helps me know if they're going to be more comfortable in a quiet area like shifting, as opposed to being in a stressful and very busy front desk. Some of the interesting results I've had include, well, it might be if someone started yelling at me at the front desk, as opposed to the other end of it with, well, as an Eagle Scout, I like to think I'm prepared for something like this in any case. So speaking of being prepared, leadership. I started allowing one student per interview to sit in, asking questions right alongside me in April of 2017. We'd go over the resume ahead of time and I'd get their opinion on what we were reviewing. The first time, they would note job experience, but after visiting about it and doing a second resume, they would start pointing out what our learning outcomes were and how they applied to what we were going to be talking about, regardless of the way it was worded on the resume. They were starting to think critically and creatively about those potential employees and how they might meet our expectations. We alternate asking questions, always ending with me. That gives them the experience of meeting the eyes of candidates while talking, keeping track of information that's being given, making sure they write it down legibly. And they're also given the opportunity to share something with the candidate about why they like or enjoy their particular position. And then after the interview, I spent about 15 minutes with the student that sat in with me to discuss their impressions. The things that have been noted, like body posture, eye contact, how professional the student was, those are things that they hadn't thought about before. And it's not that we're looking for students to come in very professional looking, but they start looking if they came in shorts, flip-flops, ratty t-shirts, as opposed to something semi-professional like polo shirts or the proper length skirts and things like that that are definitely going to impact the future when they go to real interviews. So benefits, we can very quickly say that they're more relaxed, they get critical thinking skills. And comments include being told that they wish that parents had the opportunity. They like that they had a chance to look at it. My favorite one on this particular slide is that I started thinking about how it answered the questions when I was hired, as opposed to how I'm going to do on my next job. So we chose them by looking at the NACE standards, and this is something that you can look for online yourself. The training and the timeline, we started this with creating the online, the onboarding training module that you can see the link there. All students are expected to go through that, and then they get a checklist that they're expected to do in about 3 to 5 months to check that off, as well as having a red binder that's going to make sure that they are being accountable for what they have to learn and any changes that are happening across the department. So assessment. You want to make sure that this is being done all the time, not just at the end of the semester. They need to know more often, I think, than even we do, that it's going to be how well they're doing on something. So do it weekly and ongoing. Make sure you record. I can't stress that enough. Every time you talk to them, put it into a document. These are the small things that are going to add up. So every time you go in passing to say, you did a great job with that patron, when you get back to your desk, write it down. Or if you forgot to do that again, write it down. Why are we doing it? Think of your own work experience. Would you rather be marked according to the last month or the last year? They need to see both their strengths and their weaknesses. How do you do it? You can start with a simple checkbox of yes, no. Did they do it or did they not? But ideally, you want to start developing into something more like a rubric that says specifically, this is a beginner level versus this is an advanced level, that they can see how to improve. So when you get to the future, exit interviews were just started this past year at the Chester Fritz Library in my department that are showing as they leave, what learning outcomes did you get and how are they going to impact you in the future? How have they impacted you? And I'm seeing this show up on their, when I get calls for references, that they're already using these during their interviews. So in conclusion, learning outcomes are needed to make sure that you provide clear expectations of what we want before they ever start working. It helps the supervisor know what direction they are going. It helps set goals for them to reach and to excel at. It provides them with the soft skills that they cannot learn in classrooms. And most importantly, it gives them the preparation for life and the workforce beyond college. So that is the basics of what the importance of learning outcomes are.
Great, thank you so much, Carlene. So next up we have Kelly, and she's going to facilitate a discussion about job security for librarians.